And here's the thing about it. Every one of the moves then on top of that are just common sense. There's nothing that's being done here that in any way advantages the Democrats. It really is just providing free and equal access to the polls for
Right,
people,
exactly.
including working people. I believe one of the measures includes a federal holiday for the national election. I think it also includes, now this one may not get through, so we have to watch it, but I believe initially the For the People Act, remember there was a Manchin version that was weaker? The initial
Right,
one
right, right.
included universal voter registration at one's 18th birthday.
I love that. Well, look, I've been calling for an election in June. As you know, most of the European countries have elections in the summer months, and I don't know if that's part of it. Again, it would change a lot of our primary systems. I understand all that, but to me, why are we having it again? You don't count because of in Los Angeles where it's 70 degrees, except the last month, thanks to
Right.
climate change. But here in New England, or where you grew up in St. Louis, it can get a little bit cold. We all know what happened in Ohio in 2004, in the Kerry Bush election. There were people in Cleveland who were waiting in the rain, and those voting polls were not wide open. So I mean, why not make it easier when people are not in the colder climates in this country? Try to do it in the summertime. Again,
Well, I
I'm
also was
I'm
out there. It was happening as the World Series got later and later. You'd have the World Series, this big TV spectacle, overlap with it, and then or
right.
get very close to overlapping with it. And then I remember when the Kerry Bush election, which I think was on November 2nd, was 2 days after Halloween. I mean, all sorts of people with
Hmm.
hangovers, and they're selling
Yeah,
sugar highs.
exactly. Right, right, right.
Yeah,
No,
but
no,
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 but
no.
I don't know that I agree with that
After
just
the Red
because of
Sox won for the first time in 80 years too. So in
yeah, yeah,
'04.
and the senator from Massachusetts then lost, right?
Right,
So
exactly. Thank you very much.
yeah, and then but I don't know that I agree with that so much because look, there's going to be weather turbulence now, 12 months a year, so who knows
Yeah,
what will
yeah,
be
that's
easier
true.
or
That is
worse,
true.
But yeah, a national holiday would be great for elections. That's in the bill, and so we would just make it easier for people to vote. More mail voting, earlier voting, easier, as I said, or guaranteed registration, and all sorts of measures just to strengthen the democracy. And now, I believe the Mansion version allowed for some kind of voter IDs, so there was that level of compromise. Now, that may not be in there this time because Mansion won't have as much power, but and it certainly was never in the original House bill that was passed before the People Act. But Manchin got it into his Compromise Act, so that's of course a Republican wish, and we wouldn't want to see that in there because, as we know, look, poor people simply don't get. I mean, why if we're going to universally register everybody, right? Obviously, what they're concerned about is people who are either voting twice or aren't appropriately registered voting. That's the Republican talking about, which there's no evidence that it's happening at all,
Right,
right?
exactly. It's
And
it's
um,
it's
and so they call for
typical of a
IDs.
party who can't get people out to vote.
Obviously,
Unless
IDs are going
they're
to
like.
suppress the votes seriously, suppress the votes. So we do not
Let
want to
me
see
let
that.
me let me ask you about. You mentioned in the South, and the one place I worry about is Wardnock in Georgia, and Stacey Abrams too, right? Um, here is the place where you actually have. We're going to talk to our good friend Jerry Austin, media consultant, on
What's
the
funny about
program
Georgia?
tomorrow.
What's funny about Georgia? We might as well keep a little levity for a second here. You think about Herschel Walker and Donald Trump. So
Yes,
Donald Trump was the guy who basically, who I don't know all the decisions that were made in Herschel Walker's life. I'm sure there was some other terrible decisions. Most human lives, people make a range of bad decisions throughout the course of that. But one of the worst
the
decisions that I
Jersey
ever
Generals.
made was to go to the USFL with Donald Trump. You know, so that wins his fealty. Oh boy, right there, you got to wonder.
Yeah, you got to
Yeah.
wonder. I mean, pretty soon Doug Flutie's coming out of retirement too, right? Um, but remember that's another connection. Oh
Right, sure.
Lord. So if you look at the situation with where we are in Georgia, I mean, wouldn't it make sense to run an ad of Donald Trump trying to, on the phone, they have his voice, trying to basically steal was 11,000 or 1,100 votes. I don't know what the exact number was. I guess 11,000,
Right.
and 456. He had an exact number down, and if that's the case, I mean, isn't that in itself an indictment of somebody who's talking about stealing the election? Stealing the election? I mean, wouldn't that make sense to run something? If I'm Warnock or Abrams, I mean, that to me is. I mean, do you want this man, to have people in Georgia, to have that kind of power? This is who the Republicans are. This is I don't know. I mean, to me,
I
that
mean,
would be a pretty
I don't,
indicted
I
man.
agree. I agree. You would think, and I do think the democracy issue is a winning electoral issue for the Democrats. And by the way, the thing with passing the John Lewis Voting Rights Act is it would be almost an existential defeat for this effort on behalf of the right wing to try to eviscerate the operation of American democracy as we know it. Right. Um, Having said that, the one thing I have to say is that I'm not quite sure in among the Republican base. I think Roe is going to draw out a lot of voters, and I think depending on how the January 6th hearings wrap up, and they're supposed to wrap up with a final report in early October, right?
Right.
Depending on how powerfully those go, it's true the democracy issue could also raise. Those are the two big issues that can win this election for the Democrats, and the progressives should go out and support the Democrats just singularly for those two reasons. And but it is also true that there are a substantial portion of the Republican base that are enamored of weakening our democracy. This is in the final epilogue to Tucker Carlson's 2018 book, where he basically makes a case for that. You could hear the Chinese Communist Party making, which is that at times the democracy is just too. It makes things go too slowly. Things aren't done, and when things need to be done, we need to get rid of this interference from all of these checks and balances in our system, and just let a strong guy go for it. That's right there in
Yeah, the
Tucker
bow
Carlson.
tie bandit. He has no worries whatsoever there. Just he's so concerned about getting things done on time. Interestingly enough,
Yeah, it's going to be a bad month for the Swedish result is pretty catastrophic. Sweden's had some very unique social problems around gun violence, which is very uncommon in
yes,
Europe, and it's very unique right now.
yes,
But it could lead to, it looks like about a one vote, a one person in parliament majority, and the majority, the largest party would be a party with fascist roots, seriously fascist roots. So straight out of the girl with the dragon tattoo type of history. So that's the Nazi connection back in Sweden. And in Italy, on September 25th, I think, is headed towards an election still. I mean, there could still be a few other roll of the dice in terms of what kind of coalitions might form or morph and form before election day. But right now, it still looks like the formerly explicit fascist party, more so than Salvini, is poised to be the next prime minister. That'll be the first time that happens in a major Western democracy. And so this movement, this international movement against democracy, is still on the rise. And I think it's incumbent upon the people in America to take serious steps to defeat that here.
yeah. Well, I agree.
Right.
And
These countries had
and
monarchies, yeah, very recently, and they were ruled by non-democratic processes very recently in Europe. And the United States really should make a statement for democracy. I really believe that.
well, no, I mean, here's the other point of it. You've seen what happened, almost with Le Pen, in the last election. I mean, that was touch and go. Macron, and it still may very well be in parliamentary elections. But let me though make another point to this. Bannon, who recently just got indicted and arrested there with handcuffs, he's been on tour, like Led Zeppelin used to be, in Europe there, and going around the circuit, and he's got ties into all of this. So there's a connection to the U.S.
Oh yeah,
With
and don't
people
forget
who
he's connected
were
to
part of January 6th.
connect to Leonard Leo, right? Because the guy who got the
Right.
$1.6 billion, because that guy's for the Federalist Society, but he's also connected to Bannon through their shared efforts to turn the Catholic Church back into a hyper-reactionary force globally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's a big
there's
offensive
pressure on
that,
trying to get rid of the more progressive Pope we have now. Exactly.
Right, which Bannon is very involved with, and Bannon's a Catholic, and so is Leo.
Yeah, no, it's out of control. Talking with our good friend.
And the Supreme Court is majority. These conservatives are majority Catholic.
Right. These are all extreme Catholics. Exactly. And here I am, the progressive side. Me and
I live right next door to the Vatican, and I on balance, I like this Pope a lot. And I think one of the things that really got them hyper mobilized was the appearance of Pope Francis.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, look, they want no part of it, and this is the connection. They want no part of Bernie Sanders. They want no part of. In fact, it was Sanders, if you remember. I want to say in 2016, went to Italy and spent time with the Pope.
He gave a beautiful paper. He sat next to Evo Morales, the head of Bolivia, in a special panel of leaders from around the world convened by Pope Francis. It's a beautiful moment. People should watch him read his paper. It's a great paper that he gave at the Vatican. Bernie Sanders.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it. From Brooklyn. Yeah. From Brooklyn to the Vatican. It's brilliant.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Open up the phones here at 833.
Remember, he would answer. Bernie in 2016 was challenged around his faith, and he gave a beautiful answer about connectivity and social connectivity. It was gorgeous. Mm-hmm. Beautiful social philosophy. But he did, of course, did not say that he was a person of proper traditional faith connected to a traditional religion, including Judaism, because he's not. He's proud to be Jewish. That's an ethnicity too. Not a religious guy in a proper sense.
Well, I'm not mistaken. Isn't Jane O'Mara Catholic, his wife?
I can imagine. I don't know. Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. Very nice person.
Very nice. We'll be right back with another very nice person. They're in Los Angeles, or hot Los Angeles, hot LA. It's Alan Minsky. It's the Jeff Santos Show. We'll be right back after this. Time out. Sweet home.
You don't have to wait for amazing deals on a new floor. Get spring Black Friday deals right now at Lumber Liquidators Flooring. This week, save up to 35% on gorgeous hardwood and waterproof vinyl floors. Plus, we can arrange for installation by professional, independent contractors. And with special financing, you can get started today. These are the floors homes are built on. Lumber Liquidators Flooring.
Haul packages for a living? A gas-powered Mercedes-Benz Sprinter delivers. Transport people? A Sprinter van with 0% financing is a 5-star idea. If food delivery is your thing, then a gas Sprinter caters to you. And if you're a general contractor, the Sprinter with 0% financing nails it. With innovation, safety, and technology, Sprinter is built for you. And it's built for your bottom line with 0% financing. The Mercedes-Benz Sprinter, starting at just $33,790.
I'm Rich Rosario. 1 in 4 heart attack survivors will have another cardiovascular event. Award-winning author and American Heart Association volunteer Dr. Nisa Goldberg explains the hidden risks.
Many people don't realize that managing hidden risks like untreated high blood pressure, unhealthy eating habits, and poor medication adherence may reduce your risk for having another heart attack.
The American Heart Association's Secondary Heart Attack Prevention Initiative, sponsored by Bayer, reminds you to follow your doctor's recommendations to help reduce your risk factors.
Take your medication as prescribed. Certain medicines like aspirin can lower your risk of another cardiac event. Aspirin is not appropriate for everyone, so be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin an aspirin regimen. It's important to understand your medications and take them correctly. Manage risk factors like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. Quit smoking, eat healthier, and get active.
Learn more ways to thrive after a heart attack at heart.org/oneisenough.
Are you living with pain? I was, after a nasty fall. Paul, I got relief with 1 hour pain relief. I'm Barry Yarkoni, president, and here's Lisa, a Marine who was injured in Iraq.
After surviving an explosion, I was on horrible painkillers for lingering head, shoulder, back, and knee pain, but I hated the dangers and side effects. My friend told me about 1 hour pain relief, and now I'm off the drugs.
1 hour pain relief is the result of 15 years of research on an amazing extract from hops, the plant used to flavor beer.
Whether your pain is from an injury or just aging, you get safe, all-day relief in less than 1 hour.
We're so sure you'll love 1 hour pain relief too that we'll send you a 1-week trial for just a small shipping charge. Call 800-269-9500 right now. That's 800-269-9500. There's no gimmicks, no obligation, no automatic shipments. Stop living with pain. Call 800-269-9500 for your 1-week trial or visit onehourpainrelief.com. That's 800-269-9500.
Supporting the middle class. This is the Jeff Santos Show.
"33 minutes past the hour. It is the Jeff Santos Show. You are tuned into. We're here every Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 Eastern, 12 to 3 Pacific time. That's where our guest is in the City of Angels, Los Angeles, California. Our good friend Alan Minsky, Progressive Democrats of America, the executive director there. Of course, the great Cardinals rooter fan there in Los Angeles and enemy territory.
Do you know who has the second best record in the majors right now?
Is it the Cardinals?
No, they're still behind the Mets and the Braves with the fourth best record in the NL. But all year it's been the Dodgers and the Yankees. Now it's the Astros.
Yes,
they just won't go away. They just will not go away.
I knew that. I don't know why I let you get me into the Cardinals phase. Yes, the Astros, in my opinion, are with their if Verlander is healthy, should win the World Series. I mean, they have what it takes, and I think it'd be great for Dusty Baker.
I love Dusty. Yeah.
Never won a championship. So
not many people in the country are with you on that one, though.
No, I know. Well, hey, by the way, Harvey K says hello.
Hey, Harvey K. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, by the way, I left my phone downstairs, so I know we're all supposed to be super connected, so that I get when some great global news event happens.
That's right, some breaking news.
I'm relying on you right now to let us know. Yeah.
Well, I just turned to the NFL Network, so there you go. I have to change it back to MSNBC here, but that's how the world works, at least in the in my world. All right, so. Here's something for you. I opened up, and that's one of the things that Harvey was, texting me on. And, I opened up this idea that, we really need to think about the history, the window of 1933 to 1966. We're talking FDR to LBJ. We're talking about a time period where you had Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, where you desegregated the military, where you get civil rights and voting rights. Where you had Peace Corps and Vista, and there's a whole slew of things that good government would do. And in the time period that you and I grew up in, we're not too much difference in age. It was the anti-government. Government sucks. Government can't do anything right. It's incompetent. People who are government employees are sleeping in the wheel. All these tabloid newspapers. They would show. Here in Boston, the Boston Herald, the New York Post, somebody is asleep. It's a hack. He's making $100,000 a year. That's what you end up with. And I think it's really important for this new generation. And I say this with some, hesitation, because there was a 25-year-old who ran against Alan Grayson who just won. This guy, Frost here, took money from crypto. Not exactly, the idea of good government, right? Tom Brady and crypto and all this other nonsense going around there. But what I think is important is that I think a lot of young people, and every poll after poll over the last 10 years or so, that they believe in government, that they believe in that government can help people, and I think to me that's really important. We're looking back at at that window. It's why I call myself a 21st century FDR Democrat, and how we like to, talk about what you and Harvey are doing with EBOR. To me, this is really important for young people to understand. And if they don't, that window of time period will disappear as a way that progressives can connect with not only older voters who remember that time period, but understand the policies, particularly on the economic side. I'm not trying to go back to the, to leave it to Beaver and wait till your father gets home and all that nonsense, and the cultural racism and xenophobia and homophobia. I don't want to go there, of course. But we need to really, I think, embrace that window of time, because, that to me was something that, a lot of people, before, your father and others were fighting for. And, it sort of has kind of gone to hell in a handbasket. Not many people want to actually chat about that, right now. Your thoughts?
And of course, you look at the operation of the things the federal government does, and some of the things that are the interface with the public are pretty shoddy. A lot of post offices locally have fallen into disrepair. Certainly, employment offices, look like they're welcome rooms to, I don't know, junkyards or penitentiaries. But at the same time, the Federal
we've
Reserve,
let it go to hell in a handbasket.
Well, the Federal Reserve, the U.S. military, DARPA operations, these are all state-of-the-art plus, double plus. They're exceptional.
Right.
Okay?
Sure.
So they can certainly fund things that they want to fund and make them absolutely pristine. And I'm sure the dinners at the White House, when it's not, Trump ordering McDonald's hamburgers for athletes, is pretty good, and they can put on a good show there in Washington still.
Yeah.
So
there's some arugula involved, as Obama would say.
Yeah. So by the way, Maxwell Alejandro Frost, I think he's going to be a good representative. I hope Alan Grayson and he can maybe meet, and Alan can, Alan really knows the operation of financial markets and how financial services industry really corrupt American politics and society. He was brilliant in highlighting that. I'm sure he made a lot of enemies because he did it so well when he was in Congress. I think Frost is probably going to be a good progressive, and he's going to be a popular person there. So I hope that those two can get together and meet and have a really constructive relationship. I think Maxwell's, of course, the youngest person entering. Maxwell's
Generation Z.
If people don't know, he became the person who was hired by the Parkland students to sort of be the person who ran their sort of operation for the promotion of what they stood for. So he was a big gun control advocate, and now he's entering Congress. That's absolutely correct what you're saying. I mean, we do have to renew people's faith in the operation of government, and I do think there's a great amount of enthusiasm for that coming off of the Bernie Sanders movement and awareness of the things that have to be done, the battles that have to be waged. It's tricky. There's no doubt that the Grover Norquist, I'm not getting his name wrong, Grover Norquist,
Massachusetts guy, by the way. We exported him.
The idea of you defund the government to such a low level that you don't kill it, but you could drown it in the bath, right? And that's not. Boy, it sounds like I'm mixing metaphors galore here, but he got the metaphors right.
Yeah,
gets a lot of other things wrong. Though he sure knows how to discipline a political party, which is something that the left could really learn a thing or two from. And so, I mean, they've made government services really shoddy. We have to pick them up and elevate them. And again, if there's a portion of the left that is uneasy, and this is something Harvey and I go back and forth on, what's the use value right now for progressives of the term like patriotism? Well, okay, what we certainly must embrace is the idea that what we're trying to build here is a positive society for everybody involved. And when we say for everybody involved, right now, 90% of the population are getting a crap deal with the way things are arranged right now.
Right.
So we're talking about reorganizing society to the benefit of the vast majority of the population. And from my point of view, look, for most of the people, even in the top 10%, they get to know that they're not living in an exploitative society, and they're also probably going to still be extremely wealthy and well off and live in a very prosperous, a safer society, one with better infrastructure, one with better access to healthy foods where they can raise their kids and their future generations in a healthy society. So it's really to everyone's benefit. And how do we get back there? And one of the big issues for the left is, of course, Harvey and I and yourself, you decided looking back at 33 and 66. Of course, there's two things there. One is applying it to the 21st century, right?
Right.
We're in a different context. Not only that, but the fights we're going to fight to have to get there means we're going to have to try to, as it were, unravel a lot of the logic of neoliberalism and to bring it back into a much more equitable and social democratic.
Well, I want to hold you right there, because how we got into this was a video that one of our listeners had sent in about what it's like today for a Vietnam veteran. Of course, 1966. That escalation into Vietnam, caused the whole, New Deal, Great Society go to hell in a handbasket, and we haven't recovered since. And we've been running away from it. Yeah, exactly. So, my view of this is that we can't get derailed by the shiny object. And, and there are a lot of skillful people on the right wing and some within the Democratic hierarchy, who will, say, oh, we got to look over here. Don't look at the economic concerns, and that's how you get derailed. And of course, that's what happened, in my opinion, with Vietnam. Oh, you got to look at this. It's going to happen. It's going to be a domino theory, pretty soon China and all that stuff. And I think that to me, is very concerning with all these different elements. And of course, now more so than what it was in 66, we have this fascist threat that to me is looming. And, and it's done in sort of almost a comical way, with number 45. You mentioned the hamburgers in the White House. There's something here that's not exactly, the goose stepping, SS, from the 1930s and 40s. So it's a little different. And that's what's concerning to me, is people can make their money and do their things and spend all day on TikTok. But the fact is that there needs to be an awareness. And I think that, that's an important piece. And I also think, too, that if you want to connect it to a woman's right to choose, you can do that as well. There's a lot of different avenues here. And I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but
it also can connect to the operation and the development of. This is not really a politics for that the left readily embraces, but I do think it speaks to a lot of the aspirations of the American people. It actually opens up a lot of entrepreneurial possibilities for a much broader section of the population to pursue. That goes hand in hand with American aspirations, the American dream. Obviously, making home ownership more accessible, so that people are, of course, also aren't being built for how much it costs on a monthly basis to live, whether it's through excessive mortgage payments or high rent. And again, the opportunities then to fulfill a life and to pursue work that is fulfilling to people, as opposed to just having to take whatever job they have to take under duress. And we see the aspiration of the American people to that end, even coming out of the pandemic with whatever it was called a year ago, the Great Resignation, as people were leaving jobs that they found oppressive at that end, as they were looking around for better jobs, because they, at least whatever it was that they did, they lowered their costs, they moved back in on their parents' couch, or whatever. They were looking out to try to find a way to have the kind of job and fill their time with stuff that was more satisfying. There's a big hunger for that in the American population. And again, how we get there, moving out of the logic of neoliberalism, you almost have to go sector by sector and look at the way that the laws have been written, and then have them sort of be readjusted for a more equitable society, so that it doesn't always serve the purposes of investment capital don't always have the upper hand, because right now the laws are really written in that way.
No doubt. We're talking with Alan Minsky here on the Jeff Santos Show. Talk to me a little bit about, what you're looking at, and we've talked about this before. You got Rhode Island tomorrow. Mr. Siegel is running there. There are some, great guy. And we got others. And I'm concerned that we are at a point now that we can't just look at a congressional race and say, all right, well, here's the progressive. He has to win or she has to win. When you got a whole bunch of candidates taking a whole slew of corporate dollars. Because we live in the southern part of Massachusetts, we get a lot of Rhode Island media. So, you see all these campaigns, and it's like ton of money that is coming in from corporate America into the smallest, tiniest state in the country, in Rhode Island. And I look at this and I'm thinking, it's not exactly fertile territory for Mr. Siegel or anybody else. And I think that we need to be aware of that, in the larger world. But your thoughts on where we are? So this is the last primary in 2022.
Well, obviously, once we get past tomorrow's primary, then we're into the midterm. We're past the
Right.
we're into the past the primaries. We're into the general election. At which point, again, there are about 75 swing seats right now that really matter in the House, and maybe as low as 50. And so, in other words, almost all the others, once you're past the core 50, certainly the core 75, they're not competitive races. Okay, you now have an outlier in Alaska, which wouldn't have been thought of as one, but now it could be because of the split voting and the fact that the Republicans are sort of unwilling to unify. So that's great, great thing up there. But for the most part, that's an outlier, and what we have are only a handful of elections where we know that they're competitive or they're not. We know we want to try to change that equation going forward in American politics, but that's not the game at hand as it stands right now. So where are we with these 75 seats? The truth of it is that there are maybe 5 to 7 of them that have progressive Democrats. It's as low as 5 in the top 50. You have Katie Porter, Jamie McLeod Skinner out in Oregon. You have the woman in the district next to her in Oregon 6. You have a guy down in Texas 15th, and 1 or 2 others. And of course, Siegel's race, by the way, would be in the top 50 because Fung is competitive in that race, the Republican. So if Siegel does have an upset,
formerly a conservative Dem in Langevin that held that.
Yeah, and then there are about 10 of them who you get a sense are a little bit like Raphael Warnock in that they are more progressive leaning, but because of the district they're running in, they're not really fully announcing their progressivism. I don't even want to call these guys out because I like them more than the others. Then we have about 35 pretty darn, sorry about this, but pretty rotten Democrats. We even had one woman who went to the PDA chapter for a meeting after we had endorsed another candidate against her. So it was great that she was coming, but then she didn't bend at all, and people were really turned off of the meeting. And the thing is okay, but you're not really voting for her. You're voting for a woman's right to choose. You're voting for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. And, and then there's a big hiccup happening in climate right now, in climate and environmental matters, which is the side deal that Manchin is getting pushed through by Schumer. And it's ugly. What is going on is ugly.
Well, that's something that's really ugly.
Right. Where you have environmental regulations that were established through decades of struggle, and they were codified almost exclusively by Democrats. And now it's the Democrats who are going to unravel them so that Manchin would
Thank
get
you, Mr. Manchin and company.
All right. But it may not happen yet. And what we're pushing for hard at PDA, and I know that Larry's on board over at OR with us exactly, we're in coordination with them, is not only to not have this go through, but just Schumer, Pelosi, even Biden, if he has the influence here, tell them to push it to the next Congress. Just don't vote on it, because and then we'll go about defeating it in the next Congress. But we have to win the midterms, because this could disrupt Democratic unity. It could in some very important swing districts where it's important, because environmental regulation, environmental review are important in those districts. But also because, again, one of the reasons that the public has been more supportive of the Democrats in polls over the last few weeks is because there hasn't been as much infighting. And look, Larry Cohn, Alan Minsky, none of us are going to contain, and we are not going to we're not going to turn our backs on frontline communities when they raise their voices that this is a rotten deal. And not only that, let's be honest about what these environmental reviews have done. It has been the primary instrument that we have had to stop fossil fuel projects. That's the reason they want these eliminated. And they say they're quote unquote being exploited for that by environmental activists. Damn right. Because we're going to stop these things however we can, because we have to. Just look out your window, look at the climate, look at Pakistan, look at Jackson, Mississippi, look at Southern California over the last 10 days. This is no joke. This is all of our lives, the
the
lives
real
of
thing,
our
man.
species.
Climate change,
And
the idea of talking about 2040, 2050, 2060 is all BS because 2030 is the number. And if we can't get there in
right,
time, it's history. You say
right.
goodnight.
And permitting review is how we blocked it. That's how we blocked up with the Keystone Pipeline. That's how we
Right.
blocked up with Standing Rock. And so, yeah, it's going to be a hubbub if they don't punt on this and push it to the next Congress. It's what they should do, and it's what they should do, among other reasons. The right thing to do, and it's what they should do also because it is. I mean, why pass somebody? They're trying to attach it to a must-pass resolution to keep the government open. Sad moment for Chuck Schumer. So hopefully there'll be 71 House members said they would go against it. Yeah.
Liaison.
No, there's a way that it could pass, and we'd be powerless to stop it, which would be a few rotten Democrats and all of the Republicans passing it.
Yep.
But let's just hope it doesn't come to that either. Let's punt on. Leadership has control over it. They can do with it what they want.
But they have to realize what's at stake here because you do not want to. You talk about earlier about getting Democrats to come out. You have a situation here with women's right to choose and other issues.
Right.
And if you're going to put a big wall in front of that, by saying, oh, we got to give money and our friends in the oil industry, you're going to lose that opportunity. And that could mean the Senate seat. It could mean a bunch of other things too.
Right.
You're exactly
and that's the
right.
talking points perfectly, which is. I mean, my God, I wonder if even with what Harris was saying publicly, and it was one of her best moments since she's been vice president. If we could even get to her and say this is going to be jeopardized, people have to understand. Yes, Roe v. Wade can be codified, but we have to win this midterm to do it.
Yep, no doubt.
And,
all right, let's go to the phones. No, I mean, I want to go to Tom in your city of Angels in a second here. But I mean, here to me, this is a point where progressives have to keep the pressure on, and if they don't, they're going to end up getting egg on their face in November because they will have supported somebody who will have allowed this to go through when he cannot allow it to go through, and he can say, look. You got everything you wanted from the oil industry, Mr. Manchin, and others. You don't need more. Don't be greedy. And he can do that because he's shown some success. So anyways, all right, let's go to Los Angeles. Let's go to Tom in Los Angeles. Tom, thank you for hanging in there. I know you've had struggles getting in today. So you're next with Alan Minsky. Go right ahead, sir.
No problem. First off, thank you. First off, we the people are the government. And we must never forget that because ultimately we are. Second, what I would like to see happen is exactly what you guys were talking about, where you have state-of-the-art post office, you have state-of-the-art DMV, you have state-of-the-art anywhere where they've made government the butt of jokes. They should go and they should clean up those local things first so people actually have faith back in government. Second, I want to ask you, Alan, what do you think about the idea? Because I think of, we the people, basically, if you want, is we the family, where we have a lot of diversity, we have a lot of differences within our family. We have we have some black sheep in the family, whatever it might be. But the thing is, sitting down and actually looking at it and say, okay, what is best for we the people? And what I'd like to see is on our paychecks every 2 weeks, where exactly our money is going from the taxes that we pay. So therefore, people can start seeing, whoa, military-industrial complex, there's a lot of money going there. And actually maybe start realizing that, why are we not giving the money back to ourselves in the form of, Medicare for all? In the form of education for all, which would be basically a great investment, and start talking about it as an investment. I mean, this is not rocket science, and 70% of the country actually agrees with the things that are at the kitchen table. It's just that someone needs to get out there and be able to show people so they quit voting against their best interest, because that's what they're doing. Constantly voting against their best interest. What do you think about the paycheck idea? In terms
go ahead, Alan.
Well, I mean, again, Medicare for all. I've been in this job now for 4 years. I supported Medicare for All before I took the job, and but I've been sitting in on the roundtables, leadership roundtables in the movement for 4 years now, convened by National Nurses United, and I have yet to see any way to understand the insurance companies as anything other than parasitic institutions that exist to try to take people's money away from them and to keep healthcare away from them as well. And that's how they get to
30 seconds, Alan.
by denying people coverage. So,
Alan, what do you think of the paycheck idea? What do you think of the paycheck idea where you have an itemized where our taxes are?
Thank you, Tom. I got to run my.
It sounds great though. It could just if you go out with every paycheck, you go out once a year because they put up a federal budget once a year. So yeah, whatever you want. Yeah.
Alan Minsky, go Cards, go. Thank you, my man. Great to see you.
Take care, man. Yep, good to see you.
You too.
Man. Take care.
Stay cool. I want to thank Joshua Martin, Freddie Santori for producing this broadcast today. Thank you all for listening, folks. Keep on fighting peacefully. Until tomorrow, we'll talk to our good friends David Paleologos and Jerry Austin. My name is Jeff Santos, and right now it is my time to say I gotta go.
Haul packages for a living? A gas-powered Mercedes-Benz Sprinter delivers. Transport people? A Sprinter van with 0% financing is a 5-star idea. If food delivery is your thing, then a gas Sprinter caters to you. And if you're a general contractor, the Sprinter with 0% financing nails it. With innovation, safety, and technology, Sprinter is built for you. And it's built for your bottom line with 0% financing. The Mercedes-Benz Sprinter, starting at just $33,790.
The Jeff Santos Show is brought to you by Mass Peace Action. With over 9,000 supporters in the state, MPA uses the power of grassroots organizing to end war, create a more just foreign policy, and cut wasteful Pentagon spending to support the needs of the American people, like healthcare, education, infrastructure, and the environment. 20 years of war is long